Raider Nation, what's up? Big news shaking up the NFL. And yes, it could have an impact on the Las Vegas Raiders. Today we're breaking down the George Pickens trade and how it affects the silver and black in two key ways. Plus, I'll tell you what the Raiders need to do right now in response. And stick around, at the end, we're clearing up the rumors surrounding Christian Wilkins' injury, which is something every Raiders fan will want to hear. Let's get into it. The Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers just pulled off a deal that caught a lot of people by surprise. Here's the trade. Pittsburgh sends George Pickens to Dallas. In return, the Steelers get a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick in 2026 and 2027. The Cowboys also pick up a 2027 sixth-rounder. So, the big question, who won this trade? If you think the Steelers came out on top, type PIT in the comments. If you're rolling with the Cowboys, type DAL. From my perspective, Pittsburgh did well here. They got solid draft capital for a player with undeniable talent. But let's be honest, Pickens has been a handful off the field. The Cowboys, on the other hand, love taking big swings on high-upside players, so it's no shock they made this move. Now, here's where it gets interesting for the Raiders. With Pickens gone, the Steelers could come knocking on Las Vegas's door. Why? Because they've been searching for wide receiver help, and Jakobi Meyers is a name that's been on Pittsburgh's radar for a while. I've even heard from sources that the Steelers were eyeing Meyers months ago. Pittsburgh's wide receiver depth chart isn't exactly stacked. Sure, they've got DK Metcalf now, but behind him, Robert Woods, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, none of them bring the same level of consistency as someone like Meyers. For a Steelers team that wants to play tough, physical football, Meyers would fit right in as a reliable WR2. Bottom line, this trade doesn't just impact Dallas and Pittsburgh, it could shake up the market in a way that puts the Raiders in the middle of the action. Here's where things get even more interesting for the Raiders. Besides the Bengals, who have T. Higgins, not many teams are in a position like the Steelers, suddenly in need of receiver help. If I'm the Raiders, I'm paying close attention because Pittsburgh could pick up the phone and call about Jakobi Meyers. And honestly, that's fine. The Raiders should always listen. But here's the bigger issue. If George Pickens ends up getting a big payday, that could raise the market value for Meyers. It reminds me of the Max Crosby situation. The Raiders wanted to lock him up before Myles Garrett's deal set a new market. If you know you want to keep a guy, why wait for another contract elsewhere to drive up the price? I've been hearing that Pickens, at least for now, doesn't want a new deal in Dallas. He wants to prove himself as a number. One option and hit free agency next year for a bigger payday. But if I'm Jakobi Meyers, I'm thinking, hey, I want my deal now. And if I'm the Raiders, an easy way to end all the trade talk is simple. Give him a new contract. Raiders fans don't want to hear Jakobi Meyers' name in trade rumors. He has no guaranteed money left and just 1 year remaining on his deal. Want to shut down all the noise? Hand him a 2-year extension right now. Here's what makes sense. A 2-year, $40 million fully guaranteed extension. Combine that with his current deal, and you're looking at a 3-year, $55 million package, about $18.3 million per year. That would make him the 22nd highest paid wide receiver in the league right now. And when you think ahead to 2026 or 2027, that deal could look like a bargain. He probably won't even rank among the top 30 highest paid receivers by then. Meyers is one of the most underrated players in the entire NFL. If the Raiders want to stay competitive, they should get this extension done now. Because if Pickens changes his mind and pushes for a new deal in Dallas, Meyers' price tag will only go up. And there's another layer here, Kolton Miller. We know he's looking for an extension too. The Raiders may have been planning to handle Miller's deal before Meyers, but this Pickens trade might just force them to reshuffle their priorities. The George Pickens trade doesn't just put pressure on the Raiders' front office. It might also change the order of their priorities. We've already talked plenty this offseason about two key players, Jakobi Meyers and Kolton Miller. Both have 1 year left on their contracts with zero guaranteed money, and now the Raiders' new leadership has added some fresh faces. The team drafted 3 wide receivers, including Jack Beck in the second round, a player with a similar skill set to Meyers. They also drafted 2 offensive linemen in the third round, which has sparked some speculation. Are the Raiders preparing to move on from Meyers or Miller? Here's the question for Raider Nation. Who do you think gets extended first? If you say Kolton Miller, type KM in the comments. If you're backing Jakobi Meyers, type JM. This is the pinned question on today's show. So scroll down and drop your answer. Here's my take. Both of these extensions need to get done. And I'm calling on General Manager Tom Telesco, Head Coach Antonio Pierce, and Contract Guru Tom Delaney. You've got work to do. The goal should be to lock both players in by June 10th, the start of mandatory minicamp for veterans. Rookie minicamp kicks off May 9th, so the clock is ticking. If I had to predict, I still think Kolton Miller's deal gets done first. Why? Because the Raiders have always valued the trenches, and Miller showing up to voluntary workouts is a great sign. From everything I've heard and seen, things are trending in the right direction. That said, the Raiders have plenty of salary cap space to take care of both players, and honestly, they should. You don't want contract drama hanging over this team heading into the season. Both Miller and Myers are crucial pieces, not just for this year, but for 2026 and beyond. Coming up next, we're diving into the latest on Christian Wilkins. There have been some swirling rumors about an injury, and I've been in touch with sources inside the Raiders organization, plus a few players. I've got updates you'll want to hear. That's coming up in just a moment. Let's shift gears now and get into the latest updates on Christian Wilkins, a topic Raider Nation has been buzzing about. For those who don't know the background, Wilkins suffered a foot injury in Week 5 last season, which caused him to miss the rest of the year. He underwent surgery on October 8, 2024, to repair a Jones fracture in his left foot. Now, Jones fractures can be tricky, especially for a player Wilkins' size. But from everything we've seen this offseason, Wilkins has been working hard and progressing well. The expectation has been that he'll be ready for Week 1. However, concerns started to stir when a report surfaced from Tony Pauline. Pauline has been around the league a long time, and while you need to take his reports with a grain of salt, similar to how we used to view Vic Tafur's Raiders scoops, it's still worth paying attention. Pauline reported there's serious concern about Wilkins' foot and even mentioned that Wilkins could miss time to start the season. What raised more eyebrows is that Pauline doubled down on that report after the NFL draft. Here's what he said. They addressed the interior of the defensive line. There's a problem with Christian Wilkins' foot. He may need another procedure. Pauline also noted the additions of 2 interior pass rushers, Watonka Hemingway and J.J. Pegues, as part of the Raiders' efforts to bolster depth. To be fair, I respect Pauline's approach here. He's connecting the dots, just like many of us would when analyzing a front office's moves. Adding depth on the defensive line naturally raises questions about Wilkins' status. Coming up next, we're going to break this situation down even further. I've been in touch with sources inside the Raiders organization, and I also reached out to a few players on the team. I'll tell you exactly what I've learned about Wilkins' recovery and what Raider Nation should really be watching for as we approach minicamp. Now let's circle back to the Christian Wilkins situation, because there's been a lot of chatter connecting the Raiders' recent moves to his injury status. The Raiders drafted 3 wide receivers and 2 defensive tackles this year. Naturally, that's raised some eyebrows and sparked speculation. Are they looking to move on from Trey Tucker? Did they draft defensive tackles because of Wilkins' foot injury? Here's what I can tell you. I've held off on talking about this until I got solid information. Today, I reached out to a Raiders player I trust, and when I asked if there was anything to the Wilkins injury rumors, the response was simple. Nah, haven't heard anything. He seems good to me. Now sure, some players will give you coach speak, but this is someone who's been a reliable source of insight for me. I also connected with another source inside the Raiders, and here's what I was told. Yeah, he had a boot on last month, but I haven't heard anything about him missing time this season. Bottom line, I haven't received a single piece of information suggesting Christian Wilkins is in danger of missing Week 1. And let's be real here. We're not talking about a fringe roster guy. We're talking about one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the entire NFL. If there was real concern, don't you think Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter would have scooped this by now? Are we really saying Tony Pauline is the only insider with this info? If I'm wrong, I'll take the L, but I just don't buy it. From everything I've gathered, yes, Wilkins had a foot issue. Yes, he was seen in a walking boot last month. But the vibe inside the Raiders building is that Wilkins will be ready to roll for Week 1, and that's what matters most. Final takeaways from today's show. The George Pickens trade could have ripple effects for the Raiders. Let's lock in extensions for Jakobi Meyers and Kolton Miller. If Pickens lands a big deal, it could raise Jakobi's price. As for Wilkins' foot injury, from everything I'm hearing, there's no internal concern. Thanks for tuning in, Raider Nation. Buckle up, it's going to be a fun ride this offseason.